Welcome to Café of Delights, conversations that enlighten and inspire with me, your host, Gale West. We are at the precipice of one of the most exciting evolutions in human history, from science to spirituality, culture, arts, cutting-edge psychotherapies, new economies, and more. We will explore how to create a world where all can thrive. In a series of riveting interviews, you'll have the opportunity to hear from those that are actively working at the edges of local, regional, and global transformation. Join me, your host and author of the book, Money Come Dance With Me, Gale West, to be inspired, delighted, and filled with hope for a new reality. Café of Delights starts now. And welcome. I'm so happy to have you. And this is being aired on Thanksgiving. And I'm grateful to have my host, Deb Hawkins, who's been blogging on gratitude and Thanksgiving for many, many, many years. And Deborah Hawkins has been blogging on gratitude and mindfulness since 2010, posting over 500 reflections on everyday experiences that have elevated her mood. Rather than listing events that turned out to her liking, she examined powerful experiences of being grateful and developed a short list of what she loves most and values and practices, seeing these qualities in what is. Inspired by Eckhart Tolle's teaching, acknowledging the good that you already have in your life is the foundation of all abundance. She attributes her gratitude practice with helping her work her way out of depression and forming the conversations and the cornerstones of how she chooses to live. Through books, classes, coaching, she guides people in learning how to identify what they are personally grateful for and helps them to see how these things are already in their lives. Her books, The Best of No Small Thing, Mindfulness Meditations, which I happen to have and I love, Practice Gratitude, Transform Your Life, Making the Uplifting Experiences of Gratitude Intentional. Give a fresh approach to gratitude practice that is fun, authentic, and confidence boosting. Deb has been interviewed by Jack Canfield, hello, and has guested on many popular podcasts, including Your Daily Chocolate and now mine, Unlocking Happiness with Amy Dix, and Wake Up with Gratitude. Welcome, Deb. It's so happy to have you.
It's wonderful to be with you, Gale. Thank you.
Yeah. So, I shared with you that I ask everybody the same questions, the two questions. What brings you joy and delight at this time? And what brings you hope in this time?
It's interesting, but thinking a lot about this, I'd have to say what brings me hope is feeling that people like me are stepping forward to share what they've learned. So you don't have to be like a scientist or PhD. You learn from your experiences, and sharing that can be inspirational and helpful, practical to other people. So that's really wonderful that I think we're in a new stage of doing that.
Oh, totally. We're in this amazing transformational period that I think the pandemic pushed us to. Like, it was global. When I keep thinking about it, I can't imagine that we went through that. But anyway, so the other one is what brings you hope?
Well, that's actually what brings me hope. And what brings me delight is living in the moment, having in the moment experiences. And I feel spending time in the moment is intrinsically connected to gratitude. We understand what we personally feel grateful for by noticing things in the moment when we're really feeling wowed by something. And it's in the moment when we could stop by intention and say, how are the things I love showing up in this very moment? So that's really fun for me and really how I want to live, spend more of my life.
You delight. That's cool. I love it. So the reason I had you come on your show is number one is Thanksgiving. Number two, I actually took a workshop from you, which was incredibly powerful, and it helped me to see, like you talk about this personal that we all have a personal thing that we're grateful for. I'd like to hear your origin story and then to go in about like what are these things that how do we find our intentional creativity, whatever. Okay. How did you get to where you are today?
I'll start with a little background. I attribute my gratitude practice, which I kind of created for me, as how I dug my way out of depression. So the depression had two different aspects. One was situational. I was like 50 years old. I moved to another town to jumpstart my career, which didn't happen. I came back to my hometown and promptly had a car accident, and I couldn't walk for a couple months. So a lot of things were not working for me. But all that was just on the superficial level. I suffered some traumas in my childhood. I had a sister who died before I was born, and my family never got over it. So it affected a lot of things. Like I could never replace my sister. I couldn't even replace the one that replaced my sister that died. So I never felt really confident in relationships or in building a career, whatever. So between the situational things of things not working in my car accident and this longstanding thing that I just didn't feel worthy of good things, I really was in a very bad place. And again, I was in my early 50s. So it was not a good, easy time to start anew, but that's where I found myself. And what I did was I said, you have to start from where you are.
Oh.
So what I did was I wrote short reflections, like about 800 words or so, about little things in my everyday life that really made life easier, or I found beautiful, or gave me comfort, or I delighted in them. And I got some satisfaction from this at one level, because I was a writer who wasn't writing. So this gave me a purpose to write. But then I found myself just really taken by the idea that nothing is too small. My blog is called No Small Thing. It's my view that nothing is too small to appreciate. It only requires your time and attention to give it. And early blogs might have been about such simple things as the ice maker in my freezer, or the difference between lemons and limes. Who'd think anybody could write 800 words about that?
Not a whole lot of people, but that's brilliant to be able to write 800 words about the difference between lemons and limes. I love it. I love it.
So I just really started looking at little details and appreciating them. And then I realized, after I wrote maybe like 50 or more blog posts, that I tended to write about the same things that gave me pleasure or joy. And I wrote a lot about feeling belonging, or things that were beautiful to me, or winning. I don't know why, but even if I turn my receipts from the grocery store to win a free pan, I would be like tickled to death about that. So I knew there were some themes that were common about that I always responded with gratitude. But then I asked myself, well, I should uncover more of these. And that way I could be proactive. And not just, once I know myself well enough to identify my gratitude buttons or themes, I call them my grateful dozen, though you don't have to have 12, but that's what I ended up with. It's like I could stop at any moment and by intention say, how are any of my themes showing up here? And more often than not, there's something just in this moment that's either beautiful or makes me feel lucky or is part of my neighborhood or fits in with things that I've identified as being special to me.
Yeah, I remember when I took your workshop, one of the things that I was taking a walk on the lake and I noticed this duck couple, and I was like, whoa, I love the duck couple. And we were talking about how there's something about, and then I noticed a parent and a child, and the parent was being so loving and kind. So just identifying that sense of connectedness and belonging and kindness was one of my dozen, and the other one was beauty. It was just like that's way, way, way up there. So just being able to identify these things were really, really powerful for me. So yeah.
You were very important because the workshop you were in was actually my pilot program.
It was great.
I asked myself, I want to invite Gale because I know you'd get it. Because I had a very different way of looking at gratitude. Most people think, well, I keep a gratitude journal. I go, well, that's good. It primes the pump to start thinking that positive things are happening to you, even though you're upset. But I don't think like keeping an inventory is powerful, as powerful as it could be. I think gratitude is like writing a Valentine to life.
I love it. That's beautiful.
It's like, it's who you are. What you love it and appreciate. It's more about who you are than anything in the world. And when you take time to be grateful for something, it's really a reflection of what you care about. And it shows that you matter. And that was really important to me. And then I knew you would get it. And then I thought it was important to know that gratitude is not an inventory exercise. Sometimes it's wonderful to think about things that you might take for granted, which is great, but it's not about making sure you have the 15. It's about being genuinely moved by something that touches you in some way. And no two people have the same gratitude buttons. So it's very unique to each individual. It's not a response to like something going your way. I tell people real gratitude is beyond like finding a parking space on the way to your destination. It's just celebrating what you love and value.
That's really beautiful. And I love the idea of writing a Valentine to life. That's great. And so what are your do you actually have a dozen?
Yeah,
okay. I want to hear your dozen.
I was prepared. You didn't tell me this, but I thought I would write this down. Let's see if I remember. Yes, my grateful dozen are belonging. I really love the feeling of whether I'm belonging to a family or other writers or other creatives, whatever, that I feel like I belong. I don't feel like I belong to my family that I was born into. So this is really a very strong thing for me that is very compelling for me when I feel like I belong to a group. Winning something or getting something for free, which I mentioned, something new. I really love having new experiences. And then another of my gratitude themes is what they call tourist eyes. So it's not only when you're a tourist, you don't have to be in another place you've never visited before. It's a state of seeing things as if for the first time and having an incredibly high level of self-forgiveness. I find when I'm a tourist, I forgive myself for getting lost or not knowing any better. And I wish I had this all the time. I wish more people had this state where you could forgive yourself for everything. And
so we can be tourists in our lives.
right.
And people, I was talking to somebody today about the touristy places that people go to. We were talking about Italy, and this person said, well, I don't necessarily want to go to the tourist places. I said, well, there's a reason they're the tourist places, because they're interesting. But you're right. I hear so many people here, and so now I'm in California, that go, well, I've never been there. I'm like, hello, you live here. This is gorgeous. And a lot of people take for granted the place that they live, and to be able to live with these seeing life with new eyes, I think is what you're talking about. Yeah.
Right.
That's beautiful.
And I'll just be quick and mention the others in my list. Beauty, neighborhood discoveries. I love things that are nice, but also I like them more when they're close to me. When I could go to a farmer's market like within a mile, and I go, wow, I just walk here. And like, this is fantastic. I'm really touched by people that have a certain unique quality. One of my themes is, I call it musings and imaginings. I'm really happy that I have a good mind. Mm-hmm. So I'm never bored. I'm always curious about people, and like some people freaked out during the pandemic. They got on every Zoomed or streaming service they could think of. And I go, well, I watched it a little too much TV, but I'm easily amused by just what I think. Yeah. Another thing is humor, which is very important to me, and surprise. I love being surprised by things. I think it's a sign of humility. I want to control things, but I'm really happy when I'm not in control and totally let it go. So surprise is great. And one thing that's important to me is self-appreciation. And I think this is a more recent development, because when I was young, I tried to please other people. I didn't really appreciate myself much. But when I do something now, like buy the more expensive shoes because they're good for my feet, I actually appreciate myself. And I'm grateful for doing those nice things for myself. So those are some of mine.
Yeah, you're talking about kindness to yourself. Yeah. And treating yourself with dignity and respect that you would want to treat somebody else. Yeah. And it's something we don't do that often for ourselves, and bringing that kindness in is really important. And I'd love to, so we're going to take a little break. And when we come back, I'd like to go a little bit more into how do people find their own, grateful dozen or whatever it is. And how do you identify, how do you know that it's belonging? Or how do you know? Because I know for myself, when I saw the ducks together, I'm like, oh, you helped me to identify, oh, that's that. So how do we kind of, and you can bring some the ideas that are in your book too, but yeah. So we're going to come back in a little bit, and this is the Café of Delights, and I'm your host, Gale West, and I have with me Deb Hawkins.
Imagine if you were truly flourishing, how would your financial expansion impact the world? Author of Money Come Dance With Me, Gale West is an internationally known speaker, creative catalyst, and business intuitive at Success with Soul. Work with Gale to create a new relationship with money as your friend. Link the soul of your business to the business of your soul with programs like Sacred Money Mastery, Akashic Records of the Soul, and more. To receive a healing money meditation, go to successwithsoul.com today.
Café of Delight, conversations that enlighten and inspire with me, your host, Gale West. Tune into transformationtalkradio.com every second and fourth Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific. We are at the precipice of one of the most exciting evolutions in human history. On Café of Delights, you will hear from those that are actively working at the edges of local, regional, and global transformation. For more information on hope for a new reality, visit Gale West at successwithsoul.com. We're back. This is Gale West, and I'm your host on the Café of Delights. And this aired on Thanksgiving of 2023. And I have with me, my guest is Deb Hawkins. She's an expert on gratitude. She's written over 500 blogs. She's got a couple of books on it. She has a really interesting take on gratitude that I just absolutely love. So we've been talking about a grateful dozen. So I'd like to go a little bit more, Deb, into how do you decide, how do you pick a grateful dozen or even like a grateful three or whatever? How do you go about doing that? Because I know you teach that, but give us a brief summary that people can start with.
I boil my process down to three steps, and that's look at past experiences where you felt grateful, boil those experiences down to their essence, like essential qualities of those things, and make themes around them. So a theme is usually 2 or 3 words, not like a long sentence. So the theme has to be specific enough to apply to something and really convey what the thing is, but broad enough it could be applied to every lots of things. So let's say you like a vanilla shake. Well, that's not a good thing, because if you only had to have a vanilla shake to be grateful, you'd be very limited. But if you looked at a past experience where he had a vanilla shake when you were young, you could say, oh, I like cold things, or I like feeling like a kid. I had my first shake when I was 12 years old. And so you like go into it a little more and think about what the essence is of that thing to make a theme around it. And again, that theme is specific enough to really describe what the situation is, and broad enough you could apply it to different things. And then the third step is practicing. So all I'm recommending is, once you have some gratitude themes, to stop in the moment and say, ask yourself, are any of my themes showing up here? So it might be beauty, it might be like a mastery. Some people really like to be expert. So mastery and being an expert is very common for some people. Some people like stillness because their world is so frenetic, and this is really something they're grateful for. So it requires a little reflection. It's not good enough just to list things. You actually feel whether that seems true. Like, is that the most important thing? And then practice. And one's list of gratitude buttons is always changing, it can change based on what you discover in new experiences. And you will often find that something that you identified as a personal button comes up again and again and again. So there's no perfect formula to get it right in the first time. I talk about gratitude as a practice. So forget about the Western idea that you practice till you become perfect at something. To me, practice is something you do on an ongoing basis. And each time you do something, it informs you what you might tweak a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So I think what you're talking about is like vanilla shake might be was one thing for, because I think about a vanilla shake, I think about, whoa, the taste of it, the flavor of it, where somebody else might be, oh, really feeling into that time when I was a kid and I was doing this and I was doing that, and that is going a little bit more deeper into it is it gives you a sense of the uniqueness of who you are.
And that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I know some people that would, I think in our group, a few people said they liked classical music, but people have a different reason why they like it. Some would like to go to concerts because they dress up, and some like feeling the order and the harmony of things, that everything operated in a set order, and other people found something else moving. So I agree that's very important, that people can have a similar trigger, but have a totally different reason why, or what quality is really important to you.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is just continue to ask yourself, well, why? Well, why? Until you get to that core place.
Right.
For some people, it's one. So when I work with money, it's like, why do you want this? What does this mean to you? For some people, it's freedom. For some people, it's security. For some people, it's, a sense of power. So everybody has their own reasons. So I think about, I was talking to a client of mine the other day about nature is really important to him. It's important to him because he just loves being out and being with the animals. Not necessarily for me, it's beauty. I'm all into beauty, but for him, it's just being in it because he's kind of an introvert and he loves being in that quiet space.
Right. I think everybody's, like I said, said that what people are grateful for is totally unique to them.
Right.
And it's often overlooked. People often want quick answers to things like, does my app tell me what I should be grateful for? I go, there's nothing like doing personal examination, because the more you know yourself, the more you know what you're looking for, what you want more of or less of in your life. And that's the key to gratitude. You're grateful for the things you want more of. That's simple.
Well, the other thing is it helps you to recognize, this is me. This is what I love. This is what draws me. This is when I have this in my life. You were talking about this idea about wonder. So when I'm in this place of wonder, that, whoa, this feels really good. And the other thing is noticing, because you talk about mindfulness and the importance of mindfulness. And a lot of people don't put mindfulness with gratitude. So it's interesting that you put the two together.
Yeah, I think mindfulness is very important, because if you just have a good experience, you're not mindful of what helped create it or what were the elements in it, you're like destined to have good experiences by chance. You're not pursuing them or noticing them in a deliberate, intentional way. And I think that's one of the really powerful things about this approach, that it's like gives every person the power to uplift their own mood, because they know themselves so well. They know what to pursue, what makes them feel good, and are constantly learning more about themselves. So, and that's really powerful to me, empowering rather. I mentioned that my early life, I was a pleaser. I wanted to please other people. I didn't know what I wanted. And when I think about knowing what makes me feel good and knowing what I want, I really think that has added to my ability to make myself happier.
Yeah. I was thinking the other day that one time I was really angry about something, and I was walking down the street and I'm like, "Ah," and I thought, oh, this isn't working anymore. So there's a book called Joyful, and she talks about joy spotting. You probably know that book. And I think what you're talking about is gratitude spotting. It's kind of similar. And I thought, okay, I'm a joy spot. I'm just like, because, beauty is one of my things. I'm like, oh, flowers. Oh, joy spot. So it helps you shift out of, because those energies are not helpful. They're really incoherent. And when you know what your triggers are, and you know what can jump you out of those triggers, when you're in that moment, you can see, well, what can I do right now that helps me to shift out of that place? So.
And I don't want to seem like I'm all happy all the time. No, everything is going great and rosy.
Nobody's happy all the time. You're human, honey. Welcome to the
I'm
club.
very human, yes. So I get upset about stuff, and I will sometimes hold on to things longer than I know it's good for me, but I still know I have the ability to bring myself out of it to some extent, because I know what I love, and I could probably find it in close range.
Yeah, yeah. Because you've got your Grateful Dozen. Do you look at that every day, or do you still blog, or yeah,
I
you've
still
been doing it
blog, but
for
I don't
some years.
I don't necessarily write an essay every day. I don't like make this a daily habit, but it's always in my mind. Like, what can I see in this moment to make me feel good? That'll make me feel good. I think this method is very different than like writing 15 things every day or anything like that, because it's not about shoulds. It's about honoring your own feeling. If you're touched by something, feel it, spend time with it, let it blossom, understand what it is about it that you're feeling. I also recommend to people that gratitude is not about making comparisons. I don't know if it doesn't work. What somebody else is grateful for doesn't necessarily work for me. And when somebody says, you should be grateful you have a job, or you should be grateful you have dinner or something, I go,
oh, the shoulds. Yeah, right.
Right. The shoulds are the quickest way to kill it. So I remember when I was young, my parents would say, think of the kids that don't have anything to eat. This is really, be grateful for this. I go, I just feel bad for them. That doesn't spark
It doesn't help. Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't spark my sense of gratitude. So I believe gratitude is intrinsic to who you are and is not a comparison. It's about how you feel in the moment.
Well, I think if I think about it, it's you're talking about an intention. You're talking about intentionality. You're talking about noticing things that actually uplift you. So this isn't just, so it's beyond kind of typical gratitude stuff, but it's like, what is uplifting for me? What brings me joy? What brings me delight? So hello, Café of Delights. What calms my spirit? What calms my soul? Yeah. And the more that you know those things, the more that you can walk through life from a place of, and honestly, Deb, when we're in that place of constantly being aware and uplifting our spirit, we're creating a container, which is an attractive field for more. Because the more that you notice things, and it's kind of like the more that you notice something that's good, you're sending out to the universe, I'm wanting to attract more of this into my life.
Yeah, I believe that, whether you're law of attraction purist or somewhere in between, there's something about being aware of something. Like, it's uncanny how I will go to the store and with a craving for something, and isn't it amazing how often that thing is on sale? Like, I didn't create it, but it seems that when I know what I want, the world is ready to provide it to me or show me how to get it.
Knowing you love winning and
Right.
it's on sale. Yes, totally. Yeah. And yeah, so I talk about in my book, I talk about the transceiver, and that Money talked about how be aware of your transceiver. All creation creates in the moment of sending and receiving. This is the moment of true powers when you're aware of that. And when you're sending out to the universe, I'm grateful for this. Thank you for this in my life. You are, and you're opening those receiving channels because you're noticing it. Most people don't notice stuff because the receiving channels are really, so you're saying, hello, give me more.
There's, I was talking about how I delight in being in the moment. And I think of that in terms of gratitude also, in that, and at any moment, you're there because you went through the moment before and the moment before that. So even when some things were crappy for you or bad for you, when you think that you're enjoying this moment because everything led you here, it really makes everything okay. Like, it makes it a little easier to take, not to be Pollyanna or anything like this is the best of all possible worlds, but every moment is the culmination of every moment that took place before. And it's like moving you either closer to your joy or further away. And you constantly have an opportunity to course correct.
And to choose. What are you talking about?
Choose, right.
Instead of reacting, you're responding, and in that you're noticing, you're allowing, you're bringing it in, you're creating a container that says, this is delight. This is delight. I'm grateful for this. This is joy.
Yes.
That's beautiful. We're going to take a little break, and when we come back, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your books. They're great, and how people can get a hold of you, and whatever else you want to share with us about your gratitude practice. This is Gale West, and we are in Café of Delights, and I have my guest, Deb Hawkins, and we're going to take a break.
Imagine if you were truly flourishing, how would your financial expansion impact the world? Author of Money Come Dance With Me, Gale West is an internationally known speaker, creative catalyst, and business intuitive at Success with Soul. Work with Gale to create a new relationship with money as your friend. Link the soul of your business to the business of your soul with programs like Sacred Money Mastery, Akashic Records of the Soul, and more. To receive a healing money meditation, go to successwithsoul.com today.
Café of Delight, conversations that enlighten and inspire with me, your host, Gale West. Tune into transformationtalkradio.com every second and fourth Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific. We are at the precipice of one of the most exciting evolutions in human history. On Café of Delights, you will hear from those that are actively working at the edges of local, regional, and global transformation. For more information on hope for a new reality, visit Gale West at successwithsoul.com. Hi, we're back, and I'm Gale West, and you are on the Café of Delights. I have with me my guest, Deb Hawkins, and she's an expert on intentional gratitude. We've been talking about how to create an intentional gratitude practice for yourself, the difference between what people call gratitude practice and her intentional practice, which is really, really powerful. And it's about connecting to what's really has meaning and important to you. So, Deb, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about, you have 2 books, right?
Yes.
And the one is called,
I have 2 books. One is called The Best of No Small Thing, which is basically 50 blogs from my first 10 years of hosting. I have some chosen for doing a second edition for the last few years, but I haven't released it yet. And I also have a workbook called Practice Gratitude, Transform Your Life, Making the Uplifting Experience of Gratitude Intentional. It's a very simple workbook that explains a few ways you could do this practice. I also give a workshop called Helium for Your Heart. Elevate your mood with intentional gratitude. And I have done this quite a bit through like a public access workshop, but I haven't done it in a few months. And I'd be very interested in opportunities to do it again.
so how do people get a hold of you? It's Deb at No Small Thing.
Deborah, Deborah.
Okay, Deborah.
No small, right. Add no small thing. Feel to write in
.com, .net,
.net. Right.
Okay, no small thing.net.
Correct.
So, and you do some individual coaching, right? Also, yeah. Okay, cool. And we'll kind of come back to that. So, give me an example of like one practice that some exercise that you give in your workbook.
Sure. Actually, I'll mention a few ways we talked about creating a Grateful Dozen list, a personal list for you. So, I recommend taking your cell phone and looking at your photographs and just randomly choose one that resonates with you. And it could be because you love your dog or this waterfall is beautiful or whatever. And that picture itself will clue you in on some things to ask yourself more about, like, why is this important to me, etc. So that's one way to kind of start looking at what may be in your gratitude themes. Another thing is just to look at your history, things you know about yourself, or past journal entries. What did you tend to write about? And probably my favorite experience, my favorite method for developing your gratitude button list is what I call peak experiences. So I ask people to go into themselves and recall a situation where they didn't want it to end. Like memory that would be like, there used to be a Japanese movie called The Afterlife. And it was about once a person dies, they would have like a certain amount of time to choose a moment they would want to replay for eternity. And I liked that notion that if I would replay something, what would I replay? So I chose, like for me, a peak experience was driving through the Canadian Rockies. It was so beautiful, but there was something beyond just the beauty. It was the feeling that I was in flow. that what I was looking at, I was in the middle of 10 minutes later. This was an incredible feeling. So if you really go into a peak experience and look at what are the details of it, are you alone or are you with someone? Who are you with? What do you feel? Like asking yourself questions to understand why this might be important to you. It can really go with it, and it can offer a lot of insight to what might be some of your gratitude buttons.
So oftentimes people have no idea, like all these different types of gratitude buttons. Is there a list in your book of common ones that people have?
I mentioned some of mine, but some I've heard very often in my workshops include freedom, like a sense of freedom, being in their body, like feeling something physically, mastery or a sense of accomplishment. This makes a lot of people feel really great. And being in flow, which I mentioned, I've heard that from other people, feeling safe and protected. So there's no like right or wrong. It's all individual, but these are some that come up pretty often. Or this idea of being in flow. It's like really important to a lot of people. Some people it might be creative as artists. Some might be writers, but some might exercise their creativity by devising a way to get home from when traffic is bad, not to use their app or whatever, just use their creativity to solve a problem. It could be a lot of things. So this idea of being in flow and looking at the next thing is really like it can cross personality types. It can be very common and still relatable to different situations.
So one of the things you're talking about is being able to figure out a different way without an app. I love that. It's one of the things I miss about being in California. We've only been here about a year. But back when I was in Chicago, that's how you met you, Deb. You still live in Chicago. The idea of being able to figure out a different way to go when things are, I love that. It just makes me so happy to have a sense of space, like what's around, what's in my neighborhood, and understanding where the spaces are. And I'm still trying to figure that out. So it's not so easy. To be able to know where stuff is so that I can take little back roads and do this and do that. That's so interesting that you say that. That brings me such joy and delight.
No, there's so many things from that kind of general idea, like navigating yourself. For different
navigating.
For different people, they might be excited about different things, like experimentation. Or there can be exercise their creativity to come up with a different way to do something. So it's really great when you get a little twinge inside that you get some pleasure from this. Take it further and say, what is it about this that really floats your boat?
Yeah. So thinking about that, I remember when I was in China, I lived in the downtown area, and I didn't. So everybody else all the foreigners took taxis, and I'm like, well, I want to know where things are. So I went to all the different bus stops, and I wrote down the bus stops that stopped in kind of close to my neighborhood, and I get on a random bus and take it and then get off, and then I called it my bus project. And then I would walk around and see if there was another bus that was going back home. And if I got really, really lost, I could always take a taxi. But it's this sense of understanding the space. And also what we're talking about is new experiences.
Right. And it showed that you were pretty brave, pretty courageous, that you seem to get satisfaction from figuring this out yourself.
Mm-hmm. So I wonder if somebody has been doing the 15 things a day, that's a lot of things a day. They can just go back in their, even if they did 5 things a day, if they can go back in the journal and say, oh, this thing comes up over and over and over again. I think it was for me when I did that, it was always my comforting robe. That was on my list every single time. And I looked at it, I thought, that's comfort. For me, it's comfort, it's warmth, but it was comfort, being held by so really feeling into what are these things? What are they coming up with, right? Is that something?
I think that's a really, and I do recommend that, to look at old journals, but I didn't specifically think gratitude journals. But if you look at a list of possible things you loved, are really appreciated, and you see something comes up over and over again, think about it a little bit more, because what you want to do is not say my robe, but comfort. You thought about it a little more, not just to say comfort or tea, hot tea, or a terry cloth robe or towel or whatever. You thought about it a little more. You said, this is coming up often. And think about how to make that a theme. So it's specific enough, you know what it means, but can be applied to different things. And it's funny, you could find yourself, you're sick, you have a cold, you're at home, you're miserable, and you make yourself some chicken soup and put on your robe or crawl into bed, and you feel comforted. You feel like enveloped in warmth. And it's like, you could be miserable and still be grateful. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's really incredible. I think about gratitude as part of, and I'm not a grief counselor, but to know that you can still have good experiences while you are hurting is really a liberating understanding, because things might be bad and there's no use telling yourself it is what it isn't. But when you know that you can still have pleasure, you could still enjoy an ice cream cone or putting on your robe or whatever you're grateful for, is healing and empowering.
And it's about gifting yourself. I went through a time where I was really grief-stricken about something, and I realized it just pulled me down. But then I realized that grief and joy can dance together. It's not one or the other.
Right. I believe that.
Yeah. And that's really important to recognize, that we don't have to just be stuck down there. We can gift ourselves. We can comfort ourselves. We can give ourselves things that might bring us some joy, and write a Valentine's letter to life. I love that. I'm going to use that phrase. So this is going to air on Thanksgiving. For those who are going to be hearing it afterwards, just note that the reason I had Deb on is because everybody talks about Thanksgiving and you're supposed to have thanks, but most of the people go to their Thanksgiving dinners not very happy, having to go with family or whatever, and to be able to find some gratitude in whatever the experience is. Are there some last words you want to share with us about just what is Thanksgiving and how to be in that place when
Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. It always has been. And my birthday is actually a couple days after Thanksgiving. So I used to think that it was like a festival for me. Like, first we have Thanksgiving, and a couple days later we have my birthday, and my family makes a nice dinner or get cake or whatever. And I really like to think that it's a festival for me. So that's wonderful. My thought about Thanksgiving is that we shouldn't just practice it one day a year. It shouldn't be just a holiday. It should be our way of life. It's a gift we can give ourselves, like you were saying, to make ourselves feel good. And to every bit of attention and mindfulness you devote to what makes you happy can be used in a positive way to bring more of that into your life. And I'd like to see individuals. I'm maybe not quite at the planetary change yet. Like, it's hard for me to wrap my head around that. But I really feel that individuals who apply themselves to being grateful and learning what it takes for them personally to be grateful and give that energy off to other people, do themselves and others a world of good.
Yeah. So when we heal ourselves, we heal others. When we heal others, we heal ourselves. Yes. Thank you so much, Deb. And your books are No Small Thing.
No Small Thing and Practice Gratitude. They're on Amazon. They're mostly print on demand. So that's the best way to get them. I also recommend, if anybody wants to express interest in a workshop or coaching, just to get in touch with me, Deborah at nosmallthing.net. And if you want to read some of my blogs, go to the blog or the website. You could read some of the more recent ones. I just went to Spain and Portugal, so I have some new ones coming. I wrote about being lost in Leon in Spain. I walked on the Camino a little bit.
Wow.
It was a great experience. So I invite people to see what kinds of things I write and to get in touch if they're so moved.
Thank you so much, Deb. This is the Café of Delights. We're so happy to have you here, so happy to have you, and grateful that you're doing this work in the world. We air the second and fourth Thursday of the month at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. And have a lovely, lovely day. And may you walk in joy and gratitude and delight.
Thank you very much. And thank you, my Sagittarian sister, we have birthdays coming up. So I'll think of you when they celebrate.
Okay, thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to Café of Delights, conversations that enlighten and inspire with me, your host, Gale West. Listen or watch live every second and fourth Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific on transformationtalkradio.com for a series of riveting interviews from those who are actively working at the edges of local, regional, and global transformation. From science to spirituality, culture, arts, and new economies, and more, we will explore how to create a world where all can thrive. For more information on hope for a new reality, visit me, Gale West, at successwithsoul.com.